as a student, you had an opportunity to study abroad in Germany and Switzerland, right?
Yes.
Could you tell us about your transformative experiences from that opportunity?
Well, when I graduated from the Montreal Conservatory, I went to study in Freiburg in Germany with Aurel Nicolet. At the time was a teacher, and he was recommended to me by other students who had studied with him, and he was a really wonderful teacher and musician too. Not only a great flutist, but a great musician. And I remember one of the things we did with him, we would have to memorize every week one movement of a Bach piece, and it was from a book that was called Bach Studies, and they were all transcriptions of either keyboard preludes, violin partitas, or cello suites. And that was very interesting because it encouraged us to listen to string players in the case of the ones for violin and cello, and maybe gaining a wider understanding of Bach's music in general, not from a flutist point of view, but just from a musical point of view, see how string players use different bowings for articulation, which is something that we could apply in the Bach sonatas and the partita, particularly the partita being so close to the violin partitas. I mean, the writing is almost made for string player. That was the first piece that Bach ever wrote for the transverse flute. And I think that he was not used to writing for a wind instrument, which explains why, for example, in the first movement in the Allemande, there's nowhere to breathe, because he was writing as if he were writing for violin or maybe even keyboard. A lot about music in general and the styles and things like that. And then we did, of course, other repertoire, flute repertoire, of course, also. But it was maybe a broader experience than I had before, where it was mostly concentrated on the flute, learning to play the flute correctly and all the different basic things. And then after that, I went to study with Maxence Larieux, with whom I had studied for a few summers in Nice at the Summer Academy, but I went to study with him in Geneva. And I always loved his playing. He's beautiful. And as you probably know, he's still living. He's 87 years old now, but as a matter of fact, he did something for the New York Flute Club a few months ago online, a recital online, and his sound is still at 87 just incredible. I mean, he's one of the really great players that I think and it's wonderful that we can still have somebody from his generation still playing, because most of his contemporaries, were all students of Joseph Rampal, the father of Jean-Pierre, are gone. Jean-Pierre Rampal is gone, Alain Marion, and others. But he's one of the last survivors of that school of playing.
I remember playing the Bach, partitas and other violin pieces, keyboard pieces. You made me to do it, right? And memorize.
I think, well, because as you know, nowadays in most competitions, they ask for pieces to be played from memory. Yeah. I mean, when I was a student, it was not that. I mean, it just started at that time, but now it's more and more. I mean, I know that the last Geneva competition, which was about, 5-6 years ago, almost every round, people had to play from memory. I mean, it was a daunting, and you may have done that competition.
I was there.
Yeah. So And then that's probably why I encourage you to do that. And I mean, what I found, I mean, when I started doing it, I had not been used to playing from memory. And because we had to prepare one of those every week, I would probably spend up to 2 hours a day just on memorizing that piece, so that by the end of the week, I was ready to play it from memory.
Mhm.
But I realized that doing that regularly, after a few months, maybe 3-4 months, it took me less time, because the memory is a muscle and it's something you need to work on, just like
Yeah.
other things. And I remember at the end of the year when I played my graduating recital, I didn't do every piece from memory, but I probably did at least half of them. And I was, I felt more comfortable in a way to play them from memory, simply because you're not distracted by reading the music. And it also means that you really need to know the piece very well to be able to perform it from memory.
Mhm. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm very looking forward to seeing you on the class on February 18th. And do you have something you want to add before we end the interview?
Well, it was my pleasure. Thank you for taking the time, and I'm looking forward to listening to the people who will play in the class. I know that, I mean, every year at schools for the auditions, we hear many students from Korea, and the level of playing from Korean players is always very, very high, the level of flute playing. So maybe we can concentrate on the musical aspect of what they do, just to bring music to a higher level, if you want.
Mhm.
So I look forward to seeing you and all the students from Korea.
Thank you again.
My pleasure.